Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I rise to support the Parks and Public Land Legislation Amendment Central West and Other Matters Bill of 2025. And in doing so, I'd like to acknowledge the Minister for Environment and the Parliamentary Secretary for Outdoor Recreation, the Member for Koroyd as well, for their combined and their team's work in bringing this bill to the Chamber. Victoria is home to diverse landscapes, from native grasslands to dense forests, from wild mountain ranges to rugged coastlines. They harbour our native species and are havens to Victorians from all walks of life. And we have a responsibility to care for these landscapes to make sure that Victorians can experience and enjoy them in the ways that they love to. And that's why we've continued to work and progress reforms, investments and initiatives that have all been designed to better protect, preserve and secure the future of our natural environment, landscapes, waterways and of course forests for current and future generations to continue to enjoy. And that's why we've continued to take first and foremost that real action on climate change. We've implemented the nation's leading carbon reduction and renewable energy targets. We've brought back the State Electricity Commission, the SEC, to oversee and drive our efforts to support the return of public-owned and zero-emissions energy. We've introduced Protecting Victoria's Environment Biodiversity 2037 strategy that sets out our plan to stop the decline of native animals and plants. We've developed our first ever adaptation action plan to coordinate a whole of government plan to embed climate resilience into every sector. We've introduced the state's first container deposit scheme, the CDS, to drive recycling efforts and help keep our natural environment and local communities free from litter. And we've supported many local environmental sustainability initiatives, including via some of our shared interests here, Acting Speaker, the Moonee Ponds Creek, the Merry Creek, the Eggers Creek and the West Breen Creeks, which are beacons of and lungs through the northern suburbs corridor. But it's also, of course, through our historic steps that we've taken to end old growth forest logging and more recently to end native forest logging and harvesting. The biggest environmental policies in our state's history, when combined, are helping take real action to protect our state's environment and future sustainability. And that's why we are bringing this bill to the Chamber. National parks are not only about caring for important natural and cultural values, they're also about providing opportunities for the public's enjoyment, recreation and education, whether it's walking, hiking, picnicking, nature observation, fishing, camping, a bit of four-wheel driving, trail bike riding, mountain bike riding and more. The reality is more and more people are continuing to enjoy and experience our wonderful outdoors, particularly from people of Pascoe, Vale, Coburg and Brunswick West. In 22-23, national parks and other parks and reserves in Victoria welcomed 90 million visitors alone, contributing significantly to local and regional economies in terms of jobs, small business and other outcomes. But along with these measures in the bill, the recent release of Victoria's new Tourism Plan 2025-2030 and Experience Victoria 2033 also highlights the important role our national parks and natural outdoor spaces can continue to play to drive further economic and visitation growth for these communities. The visitor economy, of course, is growing and visitors are no longer solely drawn to flagship attractions here at the Melbourne CBD, but increasingly, particularly those coming from the Asia Pacific and China, are looking for those authentic heritage, cultural and environmental and nature-based tourism experiences. And as I said, whether it's through our First Nations cultural experiences, Victoria's incredible natural outdoor spaces, one-of-a-kind biodiversity, our unique early pioneering and gold rush period, to our national parks, our outdoor offerings, are truly well positioned to all be leveraged for further preservation and visitation. And that's why, following the cessation of old growth forest and native forest logging, we moved to establish the Victorian Environmental Council, VAC Reference Group and Great Outdoors Task Force to consult statewide and local communities about the future conservation, recreational tourism opportunities across these 1.8 million hectares of Victorian native forests and home to 380 rare threatened species which rely on government protection for their future. The government's 21 response to VAC's report committed to creating 3 new national parks, 2 conservation parks and 7 newer expanded regional parks, as well as retaining areas of state forests and creating several nature and other smaller reserves. The Minister for Environment at the time noted the wide-ranging demands on this public land to not only provide safe homes for our threatened species, but also provide more opportunities for Victorians to recreate and connect with nature and their communities. And this bill reflects that need for balance and response to the needs of Victoria's general community and our flora and our fauna. And that's why this bill will provide for a number of new national, state, regional and conservation parks and reservations, including the creation of the Mount Buangor National Park, Pyrenees National Park and Wombat Lerderderg National Park. It will create a new Cobaw Conservation Park and Hepburn Conservation Park and add hectares to Bendigo Regional Park, the Wimmera Heritage River area. It will create the Mirraboo North Conservation Park in West Gippsland. It'll add 230 hectares to the Yalingbo Landscape Conservation Area, the Liwick-Baring Landscape Conservation Area, and excise some areas around the Alpine National Park, Dandenong Ranges National Park, and add land to Brisbane Ranges National Park, Gippsland Lakes Coastal Park, Yaluk Buluk Marine Coastal Park, and create Wandong Regional Park, 850 hectares, and update plans for a number of other parks, including Baw and Kinglake National Parks, Avon Wilderness Park, Cathedral Range State Park, and much more, to make several improvements to the Great Ocean Road area, and also Princess Park, St Kilda Marina, and a number of other miscellaneous changes. And through the creation of these new national parks and reservations in this bill, in combination with the cessation of large-scale native timber harvesting in Victoria, this government is delivering those landmark protections for precious biodiversity, endangered species, providing a lasting legacy for future generations, and this largely completes the establishment of Victoria's outstanding system of national parks. The bill, Acting Speaker, will ensure a large part of the most important habitat, 380 rare and threatened species that live in these areas, are better cared for, and some of these species include Mount Cold grevilleas, southern greater gliders, brush-tailored phascogales, mountain skinks, and powerful owls. And Acting Speaker, in support of this landmark bill, I'd like to acknowledge the many stakeholders and passionate locals I've engaged with over many months as it's been progressed and developed, including my colleagues, the member for Preston and Northcote, who we've advocated together on these matters. I'd like to acknowledge Calvin Thompson, the former federal member for Wills and Pascoe, for his passion in this space. I used to work for him, and his passion for the environment, for nature base and open space and our forests is absolutely contagious. And so, in his honour, in many ways, I'm advocating very strongly for this bill and ongoing reforms as we progress. Matt Rochelle, the Victorian National Parks Association, Joe Hopkins from the Wilderness Society, Luke Chamberlain, Environmental Justice Australia, and the many, many locals who've contacted me, Maggie Cowling, Nina Kilman, Sterling Edwards, Graham Lachette, and so many others I've spoken with, met with, and door-knocked and spoken to since being elected. And Maggie Cowling's written me a really beautiful email on behalf of local Australian Conservation Foundation, Community and Wilderness Society members that I'd like to quote. As your constituents, we're relieved and grateful to see that 3 national parks legislation finally brought before Parliament. We also deeply acknowledge the work that has got to this point, your advocacy and the work of citizen scientists, local volunteers on the ground, traditional owners, the campaigners from Victorian National Parks Association, Wombat, Forest Care, Wellsford Forest, Alliance of Wombat Action Group, the Wilderness Society and our local ACF community and other nature groups all reflect just how much we Victorians love our natural place and want them protected. We overwhelmingly love our national parks, we visit them, use them for recreation and treasure them as havens in our increasingly urbanised world. We hugely support the creation of more of them. Locals who walk with Victorian Mountain Tramping Club and other recreational groups have actively campaigned for these parks that are under 2 hours from our homes. And of course, they love us back. They clean our water, benefit our health, store carbon, supply pollinators for agriculture, provide tourism for local communities and help reduce flood damage. And they are important in their own right as precious ecosystems, protecting rare and threatened plants, fungi and animals like powerful owls and greater gliders. The new parks will give sections of Victoria a chance to heal after years of damage. The result will be to protect the headwaters of 6 major rivers, keep out damaging industries like mining and logging, help traditional owners care for the country, keep clean drinking water flowing to farms and towns, and provide us with beautiful places to explore, camp, hike and restore our own health through connection with nature. We thank the Environment Minister, Minister Dimopoulos, and hope the next steps of securing other VAC recommendations will soon eventuate with a new Public Land Act. We hope protections will be extended to our precious Central Highlands, East Gippsland native forests, and that this will mark an end to native forest destruction throughout Victoria. And Acting Speaker, the bill does strike the right balance between enhancing protection afforded to some significant areas of Victoria's natural and cultural heritage and provides those opportunities for tourism, recreation and connection. But I'd like to just go to those points that were made earlier by the Greens, if I can just rebut some of those points. No matter what Labor does when it comes to the environment, they're never happy. It doesn't go far enough, and it's not done soon enough. They always, all the Greens are good at when it comes to the environment is making and breaking fake promises. They cannot deliver anything on the environment or any other policy area for that matter because they're not in government, they don't seek to be in government, it's only governments and Labor governments that make those decisions. They always claim the moral high ground while simultaneously climbing that mountain of hypocrisy. And look no further, Acting Speaker, than what's happening in Canberra at the moment. The federal Labor government's trying to introduce the first ever National Environmental Protection Authority, EPA, which the Greens, since before the federal election, have been opposing and resisting and campaigning against. And it's the same with this bill here. These are practical reforms to expand our our national forests across the state for future generations to protect, and they're still not happy. They're still not happy. So in the name of my local activists, I commend the bill to the House.